Abigail. What are we talking about today?
Well, today we're taking a look at, maybe this hand-in-hand parenting stuff sounds interesting, but what if I haven't parented that way until now? Like, is it too late to change how I parent? Kind of a thought that sometimes a lot of people feel when they start learning about new ideas.
I know, I definitely felt like that.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Elle Kwan in Hong Kong, and I'm your host of the Hand in Hand podcast. We're a non-profit from San Francisco operating globally, and we decode children's difficult behaviors, one parenting challenge at a time.
And I'm Abigail Wald, founder of realtimeparenting.com, and I'm also a hand-in-hand certified parenting instructor, and super excited to be here with Elle. Every week we take a look at real questions from parents just like you, just like us, wondering things about our kids. And what is it like to parent, maybe from a hand-in-hand parenting perspective, and take a look at what some of those ideas are in reality in our lives.
So I guess, Abigail, if we're talking about, is it too late to change how I parent? I don't think, right, that there's any time where it's too late to change. But I think one of the things that came up for me when I discovered this approach, which, I was attracted to it because I felt it really resonated with the way I wanted to parent. It felt like the kind of person that I was almost naturally. But what I found was that then it kind of highlighted for me those things that I felt I had been doing wrong. Obviously I have been looking for answers, looking for a new way to do things. But then I did feel this extra grief, I guess, over things that I had done that I then felt bad about.
I love how you put that. Like, it kind of felt like in line with how you wanted to parent naturally, right? Like when I hear that, it reminds me also of what I felt like, oh, this is who I am naturally, but somehow didn't know how to be. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
absolutely.
Like it gave me like a language to sort of like, or almost like a toolkit of like, oh, you want to be this is what you are. Like, because it really did feel right, not because someone was telling me that, but I somehow hadn't known how to do it on my own. And yeah, for me too, there was like a heap of mistakes lying on the floor, between me and my kids of things I had done, choices I had made that suddenly, like I knew had always felt kind of not right, but then all of a sudden understanding why, why, or not just why, because I don't think hand-in-hand parenting never, ever, I mean, that was the thing that was so good for me was like, it never, ever felt like somebody was saying you did anything wrong. It just was my own feeling of like, wow, now that I know what I do want to do, I can see choices I made at the time that didn't have the understanding of what was really going on.
Yeah, I mean, for me, looking back, the reason I was looking for something different is because I don't know whether it was age, I was older, I'd been parenting longer, I'd had less sleep, or, just the relationship that I have with my second child. I felt like I had just become some kind of, I guess, with brides, when they become bridezilla, I'd become like a momzilla. That's what I felt like. So that's why I was looking for something different, because that didn't feel like the type of person that I am. But, and you're right, there's no judgment in hand in hand. Like that's what's so fantastic about it. And it, you can, what they always say, right? You can take tools and put them in your toolbox and use them as you will. And I found those tools amazing. But when I look back, the things that made me a momzilla was, really, I felt like I was really reacting heavily to things that my kids do, probably that all kids do, in fact. I, all of a sudden had gone into using a lot of timeouts that, just didn't feel great. They involved leaving one of my children in his room crying while I ignored him, or it felt like me marching him in there and leaving him. It wasn't a controlled response, I guess is what I'm saying. It didn't feel like I was in control. And the thing that plagues me now is, did I do, in my harshness, did I do something to him, or is he gonna always look back on me, as this meanie, I guess, which is what he does call meanies. So yeah, and that felt like a lot to deal with.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, there were so many things. I mean, you're talking and I am being flooded with memories of my own too, I mean, I remember one day my probably then 3-year-old had been like attacking the baby, and I remember we were trying to sit down and eat, and he was like behind a baby gate just screaming for us, and I remember like not being willing to go get him, because he was out of control, and I didn't know that I could help him. I thought, I'm telling you to get it together and you're not, so I can't let you here, and now I just think back and I'm like, oh my gosh, there was so much I could have done, but I didn't.
So did
I didn't
you
have the
kind
tools.
of make your peace with it? How did you bridge that gap?
Two things come to mind when you ask that. One is Buckminster Fuller has a great quote about, you don't fight the old system, you just create a new system that's so much more beautiful and effective that the old system just sort of falls away, right? Mm-hmm. When Hand in Hand came into my life, the tools made so much sense. And I was like so hungry for them that even though, it kind of felt hard to, admit that there were ways in which I had maybe let myself down or let my kids down or my family down, that I was so grateful for the tools that I just I easily adopted them. You know what I mean? They just made so much more sense. They were so much more effective.
Yeah.
And they felt better. And then the second thing is also weirdly a quote. It's a Chinese proverb that says, when's the best time to plant a tree? And the answer is 20 years ago, right? And then it goes on to say, well, when's the second best time? Now, right? Because there's always that moment where you think like, it's too late. And then, a few years later, you're like, I wish there was fruit here. And then you're like, it's too late. And then a few years later, you're like, I wish there was fruit here, and it's like, just plant the tree now. Like you will want it then. And it's really never too late,
But what does that actually look like? I mean, here it is for me, I'm making it sound as well like maybe I adopted these tools and became the saint of all motherhood, and that is far from the truth as well. There are times where I find myself reverting back to the old, maybe the threats or I snap a moment too fast. I grab him to stop him doing what he's going to do, and it feels heavy and harsh. And I get all those feelings come back up again. Oh, I haven't learned anything. I'm not doing anything, So what does it look like in real life to kind of take those feelings that you have about yourself and kind of, is it clean them out, cleanse them? I don't know.
Well, I guess for everybody that's really different, right? I mean, I think for me, it was and it is a process of continually rewriting it like a language, in my brain. I feel like I'm always encoding new habits, right?
Right.
Whether it's the walk away power that we talked about, in one episode earlier, or, every time I practice something, every time I remember. And for me too, there are definitely old habits that still happen. I mean, those are the things you practiced and lived with forever, right? So it doesn't just happen in one day or a week or a month or a year or even a few years. It's a language, right? And it's like you become ever more fluent in this language of connection. And I think it's a constant. And if we focus on the mistakes that we make or the places where we don't yet know what to do, then we're not letting ourselves win. And I think forgiveness of our children, forgiveness of ourselves, forgiveness of even the parenting we received, right? Because that's something that can come up a lot along the way. A lot of people feel...
I do find myself either reverting to strategies that maybe my parents used that I did not like. I was not a fan of myself as a child. Or I do the opposite, which I believe, works better for us and is more in line with me as a parent. And then I hear their voices mocking me. So yeah, that does come up quite a lot, this whole kind of this cycle or this repetition, how you were parented and what you're passing on. And I guess, it's a lot to expect that you can just create that change when you don't really have a model to go from.
Yeah, and I think that is why actually having a community, or, whether it's you have a listening partnership, or even if you're just checking in with the podcast every week, or going on the Hand in Hand Parenting website and reading a blog, or reading a book that inspires you, or, having something that you touch base with, because I think having a model is crucial, right? For me, it was actually having an instructor that I worked with, right? That I could touch base with. So, being part of a starter class, like there are so many different things. And, for me, I run something called the 30-day family reset. And so those people check in with me on a daily basis all the time, and I'm there for them, and watching them go through this process of change and successes and failures and, falling and climbing back up again. And it's very exciting. And as long as you can forgive yourself along the way and really focus on the wins and let yourself, it really is, like I said, learn a new language. And I don't know, I think mentorship, I think you hit on a key part of it. I think it's so funny. I was just reflecting on this actually with someone else earlier today. I kind of feel like I grew up my whole life because of reasons of my own and my own childhood, really thinking I kind of had to do everything like on my own, feeling like I'll figure it out myself. Like, don't help me, that'll be worse.
Right.
And then I got to parenting and I was like, I'm totally going to get this. Like, I've got this. And I totally didn't. And I really needed help. And then I think I would have needed help anyway. But then, especially given the medical challenges that both my kids went through, and then my dad died in the first 6 months of, my first child being born. I was really like floundering, plus, of course, lack of sleep. And, I think for me, the process of parenting was one kind of blow after another in the beginning. And I don't mean that to sound so harsh and like, awful. There was a lot of beauty and joy in there as well. But really it was like needing other people to fix my first son's heart, needing other people to help me with my other son's issues, needing people to help me with parenting, needing help. And it was the first time in my life that I was forced to literally say, okay, I buckle. Like, I actually need help. And reaching out in that way, at first felt so shameful and so, I was so angry with myself that I couldn't do it on my own.
Because you feel like you failed, I guess.
And for me, I had a concept, like a precept that I was working under that was like, I'm supposed to be able to do everything on my own, and that's how it gets done best. Yeah. And those were lies. And it was in the act of reaching out that something deep inside me was profoundly healed. Both in my trust for other human beings and in my ability to connect with other people deeply, not just my children, but including my children, and in the ability for me to allow myself to fail and to reach out and to be helped. And so for me, there's literally nothing more apt than the name hand in hand parenting. It felt like I was drowning. I mean, even now as I say this, like I get choked up. It literally felt like I was drowning, and I reached up a hand and somebody took my hand and like helped me out. And, you know, I love the name hand in hand parenting. 'Cause, like, no, I really do. I mean, really, it's like, it's so apt for me.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I think you touched on that was so beautiful. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah.
I think you also touched on something that I have found really comforting, and it is that those moments where you do connect with your child so deeply that it does begin to wash away those bad feelings, you know. And I think, you know, part of the way that I've known that kind of healing and acceptance has happened is that I've found myself reflecting back. Like, I feel like this approach really has you reflecting back on how you were raised and the parenting you got, and just accept that your parents were trying to do what they thought was best, what they knew. And maybe without this help that we saying is so essential, perhaps without that as well, because they came from their own cycle of parenting, which was, you know, 2 generations removed, totally different from how we see it today. So I feel like those moments of connection can be so cleansing for both. And so I think something that's made it easier for me is thinking, well, if I can forgive myself, I think they can too.
Yeah. And I think you bring up such a good point, which is, you know, our parents were doing the absolute best they could given their circumstances and what they knew, right? I mean, and sometimes people will question me and be like, really? And I think, yeah, you know, I mean, I know that there were nights, okay, early on in my kids' childhood where I was standing at the door, like I would lose my mind at bedtime, just lose my mind. And I remember a night I was just screaming at the door, you know, so upset and angry and frustrated with my kids. And, you know, I know that in that moment, like, I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't do better in that moment. I didn't yet have the tools to know how to do better. And, you know, I was doing the best I could in that moment. Not the best I could ever, right? But without help.
In that moment is so important.
Yeah. So I fully believe that our parents, and we all are, our kids are doing the best they can in the moment. We are too. And sometimes our best isn't so great. So this is just about.
And sometimes it's just too bloody hard.
Sometimes it's just about like, how can we make our best better? And that's, you know, what we do. But the other thing, you know, that you bring up, which I think is so beautiful, is it really is in those moments with our kids that when you do find that sweet connection and you find even just a moment of it, it's so unbelievably yummy that you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to keep looking for that. That's the point here, right? Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you answer that question? Is it too late to change how I parent?
Well, I answer it like this. Imagine that you're 5 or you're 12 or you're 18 or whatever age you wish you were, and you wish that your parent had come in and sat down in your room with you and said, hey, I'm learning some things, and, you know, I'm realizing that maybe I haven't been listening enough or connected with you enough, and, you know, I'm still going to mess up sometimes, and that's okay, but there's some things I want to try because I really care about you. And I really want to listen more. You know, I don't think any of us would have not wanted that if it had been heartfelt, right? If the parent had really been willing to do that. And mean it, right?
Yeah.
So
it's not too late. It's never too late.
I don't think it's ever too late. I mean, there are people I know who are 70 years old who are still waiting for their parent to say that to them. I'm serious. You know? So I think that that's something that always stays in your heart, you know.
And I guess the forgiving yourself element, it is a process.
Yeah.
You forgive yourself slowly, and as you delve deeper into this kind of new approach, or whatever approach you're happy with, you can start to let some of those harsh feelings you might have towards yourself go.
Yeah, I think it is a process, right? And so, you know, we forgive ourselves little by little, and or all in one day if you like.
That would be better.
Right? And like, really, I mean, I'm thinking about it, and even as I say that, I'm like, forgive ourselves, like, but on some level, forgive ourselves for what, right? Because we're all doing the best that we can, really. I mean, I think for the most part, like, really, parents really, really care. And you know, sometimes we've made mistakes, or we did things in a way that maybe now we look back at it with more information and we think like, oh, I don't know. But in the moment, you made the choice you made because of the information that you had, and it made sense at the time. And, you know, it's just such, on some level, a waste of energy to spend all this time sort of feeling so bad and berating ourselves. You know, you wouldn't want to do that to your kid, right? If your kid made a mistake, you'd be like, it's okay, my love, right?
Yeah, it's not all about your kids. It's about you as well, right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Like, this isn't just about what experience we're giving to our kids. This experience is also for us. This is our life too, every day. So I think it's really important to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, to know that we've always been trying to do a good job for us, for them. And if now the definition of good job changes, then great, go with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's all a good job. And it's just a matter of what brings more joy, what's more effective. And, you know, if you find that here with Hand in Hand, great. If you find it in what you're already doing, great. If you find it somewhere else, great. Whatever feels right for you in your heart, right? You know, we don't need to waste any time, right? Like, over whatever we didn't do, right? Just wake up. It's a sunny day. Plant a tree. So someday you've got fruit, right? Because we're already all stressed out as it is, right? No more stress.
Let's do that.
More stress.
You know what? That's given me a good idea. So on the show notes, I will put this week 5 ways to make parenting less stressful as our free giveaway. We are stressed. Parenting is hard. We can all use a little less of it, right?
Yeah. You'll get
stress. Yeah. Okay, so you can find that at handinhandparenting.org/podcast. And please do let us know what you think about the podcast. We love being here every week with you, and we would love to hear more from you.
Yes, please subscribe to the podcast on whatever channel, whatever way you listen to podcasts. And then also, please do leave us a review and a rating. We really appreciate it.
I'll see you next week.
All right. Take care, you guys. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.